created to empower entrepreneurs all over the world. And today I have my special guest. From start to scaling, building business that runs without you. None other than Mr. Thomas Rechtien. Welcome, Mr. Thomas, on
Thank
Entrepreneurship
you.
101. Can you please introduce more about yourself, that I miss?
Sure. My name is Thomas Rechtien. I'm a business coach in Houston, Texas, but I work in the US, Germany, worldwide for that matter. Most of the work I do is remote. After a long career in corporate, where I was a turnaround CEO for different businesses, I decided to go out on my own and help small businesses kind of take advantage of all the things that I have learned so they can learn and grow and, actually get out of the business what they got into it for and not get stuck in 80-hour works weeks and no time for the family.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Mr. Thomas, thank you. So today, let's talk about being the former president and CEO. So tell us, Mr. Thomas, your transition from still trading to leadership coaching, and now you are as well as a author. Are you
No,
producing a book right now? Okay, so
no.
what the transition is all about to have your own business
hmm
than rather to being a CEO or president
hmm
of a company.
For me, it was for the most part that, being the CEO or president of a company, um, well, I was obviously able to work in that company and help that company, but I wasn't able to make the impact I wanted to make. So transitioning to being a self-employed business coach allowed me to work with 10, 15, 20 clients at the same time. And with that spread the wisdom that I have accumulated over the years much further and have a much bigger impact with that. Because now I can touch, 20 businesses and the lives of many, many more people than being in a corporate role.
You earn the reputation as the fixer, the executive brought in when organization face critical challenges. Can you take us inside your first 90 days as struggling company? What are you looking for what others miss?
Mhm. So the first is obviously the discovery phase, where one of the first things I establish with the business owner and the leadership team when I talk to them is I ask the question, would you buy your own business knowing what you know about it? And oftentimes they hesitate because the owners know that the business wouldn't run without them, right? They work 80 hours a week, 60 hours a week, whatever it is in their case. And every decision goes over their desk and the business is just dependent on the owner. Um, from there, it goes on to, okay, how can we change that? It's what core values do you live to? And how how do your people on your leadership team see the business? Like when I ask the question, where do you want to be with the business 5 years from now? And you talk to the whole leadership team, everybody gives their input and the owner talks last. Usually with 5 people in the room, you at least get 3 different opinions and 3 different inputs. So that means, everybody has a different view of where the business should be going. That oftentimes leads to the fact that, well, the energy flows in different directions and not only in the one direction that is where the business should be headed. So those are all things that we fix. Another big thing is the view to the organizational chart to see who is in which position, what are their true responsibilities, like what are the most important things every position requires of the person holding that position, and what is actually needed to get the company to where it wants to go within the next 6 to 12 month time frame. So what setup do you need to get over the next 6 to 12 months? Is what you have today good enough, or do you have to make adjustments? You're on mute. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Thomas, at Salzgitter Mannesmann International, you scaled the business from 50 million to 150 million dollars. Walk us through that journey. Was it what about entering new markets, optimizing operations, or acquiring competitors, or something else entirely?
No, there was no acquisition. It's a mix of finding new markets and tightening up operations, because oftentimes what I find is that businesses are in a stage where, well, there is a lot of business being done, but not all of it is profitable. Not all of it is geared towards being a perfect fit for the company. So trimming back things to make sure you're only in the markets you really kind of stand out in. You have a possibility to, obviously, with that in a niche, make more money, um, and also grow within that niche, but then find some other niches that you can add to the portfolio. So at Salzgitter, we came from 3 niches, we ended up with 5, and that helped grow the business. Plus, then we grew in every one of these buckets we were doing business in.
Mr. Thomas, you say most business coaches speak from theory while you speak from the trenches. What is the biggest gap between the theory promises and the trenches deliver? And what did you learn in that gap?
So the biggest gap to me is that, I mean, the theory is good, right? But there's many things that you can't learn in college, in books, in theory about running a business. Like, how do you run an effective meeting? How do you make sure
Mm,
that meeting starts on time and ends on time? How do you make sure you get the best out of your people? And how do you identify the people where there's issues you need to tackle in the discussions? If you haven't been there and if you haven't had these discussions, the theory is great. But if you don't know how to get the rubber on the road, if you don't know how to apply the theoretical wisdom you have in the practice, that's where the big gap is. And that's where many people get lost in what's theoretically possible versus what they can actually do.
very well said. Very well said, Mr. Thomas. In your 20 years transforming companies across the US and Europe, what is the single most common mistake you see leaders make when trying to scale, and why do smart people keep making it?
The most common mistake, I think, is that leaders get overextended because, again, a lot of the most important decisions end up with the leaders. So their desk is always full, which means they have a lot of day-to-day decisions to take, which leaves them little time to think about and work on the big picture. So oftentimes that goes on the back burner and they get tangled up in the day-to-day. And then you go from one day to another, from one week, month, and year to the other, right?
Mm.
Um, but you're really not making big jumps, you're making steps forward. And that's very common because oftentimes leaders feel that they have the knowledge required, most of the knowledge. Um, it's their company, so they ought to take the decisions. Um, and that's it's not fundamentally wrong, but that's what's eating up all their time. So there's no time left to work on development of the company. And you really, as you grow, have to start building extensions of yourself. You need people and you need resources that can help you make sure that you, as the owner or the leader, are working on the most important things in the business and other people do other things.
Well said, Mr. Thomas. You called in when organization face critical challenge. That means you often walk to rooms where people are scared, defensive, or in denial. How do you read the room in those 5 hours, and how do you build trust with a team that may not want you there?
So, well, that's part of the initial evaluation, right? There's a couple things like in coaching, it's to make sure that for one, you can coach whatever the client is asking for, like you can help them with the problem that needs to be established. The second thing is that the client is actually coachable and wants the help. And the third thing is that there is like a match on the personal level so that you get along, right? And that's what I tell potential clients when we first get into a room and I speak with the leadership team about what working with me looks like. There's, I call it a fit call, and there's three fits like, am I a fit for you? Are you a fit for me? And are we a fit for each other? And if there's, I don't know, say a leadership team of 5 people where 2 people don't want to work with me, well, they have internal work to do before I even start, right? If there's these forces that are against the trend, they either have to come on board or maybe they're not the right persons for that role that they have in the company currently. And that needs to be established. And I'll be very open about that because if you have only half the leadership team on board and the other half just wants to do something different or works against you, um, yeah, you already lost before you even start.
Certainly. You help leaders scale in their business. What is the difference between scaling and simply growing? When does getting bigger actually make a company weaker?
Um, that's a good question. I truly believe that that is to be determined by each individual company. And the like coming in, everybody wants to grow, everybody wants to scale, right? Everybody wants to get bigger. However, I found that for some companies that's the right thing to do and there's a way to do it. But others, like the example we had before, they're not ready for it yet. They're not aligned enough to be able to go down that path. And they are very content with where they're at. They don't want to work more, they don't want to take on more risk, and that's fine. And that's part of this initial discussion where it's about where do you really want to grow? Is this for you, or are there things that you say, nah, that's too scary for me? I'm okay where I'm at, I'd rather stay here. So for these people then that want to grow, part of, like I said before, is this evaluation and the first steps where you have to make sure you're willing and able to let go if you want to grow. And that's where things fall apart quickly. You have to be able to delegate things to build extensions of yourself because as you grow, things get much more complex very fast. And if you want to be the bottleneck that all decisions throw through as a business owner or leadership team, if you don't trust anybody to do the job right, that's where things fall apart.
Well said. Well said, Mr. Thomas. You're a certified Summit OS coach. For those unfamiliar, what is Summit OS framework and how does it help leaders to scale without burning out?
Um, Summit OS, yeah, I did in the past. I don't work with Summit OS anymore, but there's different frameworks like EOS, Summit OS, Pinnacle OS. They're all operating systems, and they all a little different. As am I, right? My system is called From Stuck to Scaling. It's a four pillar system where it's all about clarity, alignment, focus, and momentum, which means you build clarity first, which is what we've been talking about already. Get really clear about where a client wants to go, and then make sure they're aligned on that. The whole leadership team is aligned. And then it's about focusing in on the most important things. And then the last step, getting momentum and taking that focus, the alignment, and the energy that comes with that to push the company forward and grow.
Mr. Thomas, correct me if I'm wrong. You're now run Recting Consult and serve as the president of Non-Steel Sales LLC. Is
I
that
only do
correct?
Recting consult. Yeah, I only do Recting consult.
Okay, so does staying active in operating companies make better coach?
Um, well, I'm not active in an operating company right now other than my own. So, however, I've done this for 20 plus years, and I think the experience gives you a big piece of what you need to be a good coach because when you've been there and you have felt the pain and you know what it is to probably not be able to make payroll at the end of the month. You know how it is when you have a wrong person in the company that is just cancerous, if you will, and kind of destroys. things internally before you even see it on the outside. Um, Obviously, then it's easier to feel into this when you talk to a fellow business owner who is having some of these problems, and you can feel into what impact that has on them.
Well said, Mr. Thomas. You're known for helping leaders foster trust, improve communication, and drive results. What's the fastest way a leader can destroy trust, and what does it take to rebuild?
The fastest way to destroy trust is to be dishonest with your people. I truly believe that you have to be honest and straightforward in everything you do. What does it take to rebuild? That's much harder than building it in the first place. Once you come from a point where it has been destroyed, it's very hard to get it back. But again, it's the honesty and being open. So communicate open, often, and clearly what's going on in the business.
Indeed, honesty is the best policy, people. You've developed a frameworks for running effective meetings. Why do you believe well-run meetings are so critical to organizational health? And what is the one change leader can make to transform their meetings?
I think meetings are critical because we all are in many meetings every day, every week. Um, and most complaints I hear is that they never start on time, they never end on time. And then after they went over, like an hour, the meeting that was scheduled for an hour goes for an hour and a half. There's really no result, like no outcome. Everybody goes on their way and they do what they have been doing. No agreements, no accountability. So usually many meetings are perceived as a waste of time, which makes it important to run good meetings. And good meetings start on time, they end on time, they have a clear goal behind them, and they take away some accountability. Like if you and I were in a meeting and we discussed to do something within the next week, you have to assign it to a specific person. It has to be very clear what the actual assignment is. Check in midweek before the next meeting, and then it has to be done by the time the next meeting comes around so that, an employee or whoever is in charge of a certain task can report back that it was done, or if it wasn't done, explain what happened and what needs to happen for it to get done. And that way, people come and, well, actually enjoy the meetings because they know, yes, they start on time, they end on time. So I know exactly what I'm getting into. They actually have a result. Like we talk about critical things for the business, we discuss a way to solve the biggest problems we have, and then these problems actually get solved. And by the next time we get together, we hear all about it.
You speak about driving impactful results. How do you define impact differently than just revenue or profit? What metrics matter most at the end of the day?
That really depends on each individual business. Like some businesses want to make an impact by contributing to the community. Some other businesses want to do good things for their employee. So whatever they define as impact, besides the plain numbers, revenue and profit, that's something that we will put on a scorecard and then track every week to make sure they make steps towards their goal.
Well said, Mr. Thomas. You've been called the fixer because you brought in when organization face critical challenges. That often means making painful decisions, restructuring, layoff, killing beloved projects. How do you sleep at night after those decisions, and how do you know when you've cut too deep versus not deep enough?
It's a good question. Well, for one, I sleep well because I believe that decisions they have to be taken, obviously. Um, the most important thing is whatever decision you take, once it's discussed in the leadership meeting and it's been established that it's the best way for the company to move forward, you have to communicate it to everyone involved in the right way, which means you let your people know what's going to happen, when it is going to happen, and why it is going to happen. That way, again, it's very open and honest. Everybody knows what's happening, why, and well, hopefully in the end, there is no hard feelings. If you cut too deep, obviously, you will realize when things don't go the way you predicted them to go, right? If you wanted to take a decision to get to a desired outcome and the outcome you get is different, then you probably, well, you either took the wrong decision or you executed it in the wrong way.
You've said most business coaches speak from theory while you speak from the trenches, as I asked a while ago. Can you give a specific example of a popular business theory that looks beautiful on paper but collapses in the real world? And what do you do instead?
Well, I think one example would be the accountability piece, right? Where,
Mm.
like, again, we talked about this before in the context of the meeting. Something needs to be done. And oftentimes, what I found in organizations and team meetings, it stays with a cordial we. Yeah, we need to do this. We should do that. We ought to do this. And then in the end, it never happens. So it makes a big difference when there's a clear accountability. Like a certain person, say Daniel, your task until next week Friday is to do X. So it's very clear. There's only one thing you have to do. You have to do it by next Friday, and you're the person in charge. That makes it very clear who has to do what. And it makes it very clear to hold people accountable and also to follow up and make sure it actually gets done. When there's no accountability assigned to anyone, that's where things get lost because nobody's going to just voluntarily take charge, right, and put more on their plate to get a problem solved.
Well done, Mr. Thomas. Well done. And to wrap up our discussion for today, you've been the fixer, the CEO, as well as the coach right now. Looking back over 20 years of transforming companies, what are you most proud of, and what is one thing you still want to accomplish?
What I'm most proud of is the amount of people I was able to touch during my career, no matter if that was corporate or in coaching. Um, what I want to accomplish is help even more companies get to their happy place and reach their goals.
Yes, indeed, to reach your goals. And Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Can you please invite our listeners to support your coaching itself?
Yeah, if you need help, if you feel like you're in a situation where you're stuck with your business, I'm happy to have a chat and see how I can help. And obviously, you can book a call with me through my website, rectingconsult.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Thomas Rechtien, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering coaching will rise. So, Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.